In 1996, the film Independence Day broke all box office records, becoming the seventh highest ranking film of all time, has entranced audiences around the world with a fictional story of an alien invasion on Earth. However, deep within the film, subliminal messages can be found, indicating the Freemasonic presence and the Freemasonic agenda. In the film, there is a military base known as the Area 51. It is from here that the military offensive is launched, on which the salvation of the whole world and the future of its inhabitants depends. The entrance to this installation is a pyramid on which is engraved the symbol of one eye. The film shows the USA as a forerunner in establishing a global offensive involving all the nations of the world. An offensive which is devised, controlled, and commanded by one man, one overall leader. The film is part of an upsurge of films and television serials on the topics of aliens, UFOs, and invasions, threatening the whole of mankind. This gradually fueled the public unrest on the issue. This is just one of the many ways in which the Freemasons are paving the way for their global government. The Freemasons are using a number of approaches to drive fear into the hearts and minds of the masses, instilling in them the need for greater protection and thereby the need for greater security. A need that could only be fueled by a worldwide coalition government, protecting the interests of all human beings across the globe. This industry, according to official estimates, is in terms of monetary value, is one of the largest industries in the world. The countries of the world that are currently involved in trying to solve this problem on a national and international scale, the United States, for example, has a huge and growing drug problem, the direct result of which is been soaring crime rates, which continue to increase at an alarming rate. Backed by the growing levels of public demand for tougher action, the government has justification to use heavy-handed overt and covert operations to combat the drug problem and satisfy public opinion. However, certain disturbing facts about the American drugs war throw a shadow of doubt upon its credibility and the motives of the government. That during the 1960s, J. Edgar Hoover, joint chairman of the FBI, allowed the drug trade to flourish within the African and American community in an attempt to undermine the black community's uprising within American society. During the 1980s, with the threat of communism taking over Central America, money was urgently required to finance the rebellion movement against communism. And to raise this, the CIA allowed drugs to be traded into America. Revelations by the American Senator Jack Bloom, who was part of an investigatory committee into the matter, confirms this. The pathetic justification given by the FBI for using drugs to subdue the African American community in the 1960s was that the Black Uprising was in actual fact a communist attempt to undermine America's involvement in Vietnam. During the Contra Wars in the 1980s, the scapegoats used to justify the flow of drugs into America. However, today the threat of communism no longer exists. Yet the drugs trade is still flourishing in America, and the trade in international drug trafficking is soaring, raising the question as to why. Historically, the Freemasons have created problems within society to turn and manipulate events in accordance with their agenda. The rising drug problem in America gives the authorities of all the justification needed to use stronger, heavy-handed tactics on an even wider scale. Already, major transatlantic operations as well as American and Latin American operations have been undertaken to combat the drugs epidemic. It will not be long before there is significant backing for a strong global offensive. Distortion of the fact and usage of manufactured and biased statistics are the tools of the Freemasonic governments of today, as well as creating a public need for a greater national and global security. Rising rates of crime, drug abuse, and the increasing threat of terrorism act to serve the purpose of promoting greater control over the masses. Advances in the technology are the way forward for the Freemasons. These allow the actions of all the individuals in society to be monitored, checked, and recorded. Information is their key. The more information they have about you and individuals living in the society, the more accurately they can predict their actions. The Freemasons are creating a society, and in the society, the choice is but an illusion. Technology is there to restrict the choices you have, and the choices you do have are in actual fact the products of the manipulated mind that has been steered into a predefined direction. Control of the masses means the complete control of every aspect of human's life. Your life. Shocking acts of terrorism, rising crime rates, and increasing incidences of violences are propounded by film, media, and government reports are alike, creating strong public sympathy and support for harsh tactics and surveillance techniques. In this way, more and more technology can be introduced, and the level of monitoring and surveillance can be increased until individuals are monitored to a level more befitting a totalitarian state. Public opinion will once again be manipulated to give the Masons justification for their actions and make their goal easier. The means of monitoring the masses and storing all personal details about individuals in society on a massive mega database is already on its way. Rapid movements are taking place on storing personal information on individuals on plastic, such as banking details, driving license information, and national insurance details. Currently, these details are stored on separate cards, but plans are well underway to merge all the information to one identity card. The consequence would be complete monitoring of all purchases and transactions and personal details of an individual with the touch of a button. In 1992, the Vice Chancellor of the British Supreme Court, Nicholas Brown Wilkinson, told the High Court that if the information obtained by the police, the Inland Revenue, the Social Services, the Health Service, the other agencies were to be gathered together in one file, the freedom of the individual will be greatly at risk. However, the Freemasons, through the government's control by them, already have access to the vast array of information about you. They can already find out who you talk to on the phone, where you work, where you shop, what you eat, what you wear, how much you're worth, what you earn, and the list goes on and on. One identity card allows even closer monitoring and enable the complete psychological profile to be compiled on every individual in society. Information which would make it very easy to predict, control, or manipulate actions. However, there is a gap that the Masons need to fill in. By using hard currency, an individual can evade detection and vital information is lost. Since hard currency transactions aren't traceable, as a result, moves are being made to replace hard currency with a system that depends completely on electronic funds transfer. In other words, a system that relies totally on cards or cryptocurrency. Trails in Finland have held the first signs of the move towards the introduction of smart cards and electronic money on a national scale in the UK. The Mondex scheme is pioneered by NatWest in Midland Banks and British Telecom and is the first British trail of the smart card. Inside a smart card is a microchip which calculates every single transaction, not only financial transactions, but records every single thing for which it is used. It can serve as a credit card, a building society passbook, library card, travel card, phone card, and quite possibly an identity card. The concepts were pioneered in France, which already has its own rigorous identity system. Although an identity card will reveal much detail, it would not be able to locate any one person precisely at any given instant time. This would require some sort of tracking device that could be put on and detected wherever that person may be on the globe. The tracking device would be an all-purpose microchip identification device or electronic implant placed under the skin. These implants could then send off a signal which could then be picked up by satellite in low Earth orbit, locating and identifying the subject. Although this may sound like works of fiction, it has, however, already become a reality. As per the Index of Objects launched into the outer space, which is prepared by the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNOOSA, 4,987 satellites revolved around the Earth's orbit during the start of this year. The number of satellites revolving around the Earth showed an increase of 2.68% as compared of the last year that are in use by USA and her allies. These satellites can act upon incoming signals and pass down accurate information to the source of the signal about its location. At present, the source of the signals are devices that attach to tanks, battleships, aircrafts, or handheld instruments for accurate navigation purpose. The next step would be to introduce the device that creates a source signal on every individual Currently, one form of device that has been created specifically as a signal source for the satellite is the electronic tag. Already a scheme using such tags on individuals is in operation in the UK. The justification used is that it is necessary to curb the growth in the population of the already overflowing prisons. The tag fits securely around the offender's wrist and can be monitored to see if the offenders are violating curfew and regulations. Pilot tagging schemes already in operation in Greater Manchester, Berkshire and Norfolk, with plans for expansion in other countries. In an article of the Daily Telegraph dated 13th of November 1997, Jack Straw, the British Home Secretary, stated that e-tagging has developed rapidly in the past few years, as has people's confidence in it. There is no argument that it has within it the scope for further significant development, and with the people firmly under their watchful eye, the Masons can now further advance their plans for global control, manipulating them in accordance with their own ends, and this manipulation would be achieved by any means necessary. Freemasons' plan for complete global control by one governmental body means that they must pave the way for complete global economic union, complete global legislatory and political union, and complete global military union. On March the 25th, 1957, with the creation of the European Economic Community, the first significant steps in the creation of this global government were taken. Since the EEC has become a testing ground for the New World Order, with the basic tenets of freedom of movement between member states already established, goods and people can move relatively freely within this one superstate. The plans are already underway for the establishment of complete monetary union, and the powers of the governmental body of Europe are growing every day, paving the way for a complete political and legislative union. All this would mean that eventually in the superstate of the European Economic Community there will be one currency, one economy, and one government, and the government would most certainly be a Masonic government. The three most important players of the European community are Britain, France, and Germany. Britain and France have long been Masonically controlled nations. During World War II, Germany was completely annexed by Britain and France. Along with USA, another Masonic nation, and the Soviet Union, the sectors of Germany controlled by the former three countries. The Masonic nations formed them a separate political identity called West Germany, and with the downfall of the Berlin Wall, West Germany has now taken over the form of East Germany. Europe is not alone in its efforts to achieve superstate status. Canada, USA, and Mexico are currently the only three members of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. However, the nations of the South are increasingly being pursued to join. With Masonic superstates in both Europe and USA firmly established, global union would be a logical and easy progression. However, there is another problem that the Masons need to contend with if they are to be the masters of this global union. By the 1970s, it was becoming increasingly clear that the population of Europe and white America was rapidly declining. Unless something was done, the expanding size of the population of the third world nations would pose a serious threat to the national security of Masonically controlled countries. Western consumer power and productivity would reduce, and as a result, they will be completely dependent on that of the third world population. Somehow, the gap between the Western population and the third world population had to be a bridge to restore Western supremacy, or more precisely, Masonic supremacy at a global scale. In the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter commissioned the Global 2000 report. The findings of the report blamed virtually all of the world's problems on the population growth of non-white people. The report went on as far as recommending elimination of at least 2 billion people in third world nations off the face of the earth by the year 2000 in order to restore Western supremacy. Interestingly enough, also in the 70s, the AIDS epidemic broke out, claiming huge amounts of lives in third world nations as well as amongst the growing black and Hispanic population of America. It was said that the virus originated from the green monkeys in Africa and was later passed on to the local population through either acts of bestiality or through consuming them as food. From there on, AIDS spread like wildfire across the African continent and later on to the rest of the world, claiming millions of lives. However, the story was just a smokescreen. On June the 2nd, 1988, the LA Times published an article refuting the idea that the human AIDS virus originated from green monkeys. It uncovered the evidence that the DNA composition of AIDS was totally inconsistent with that of green monkeys. In fact, it could be proven that the AIDS virus could not be found anywhere in nature and could only have ever survived in the human biological system. On July the 4th, 1984, the New Delhi newspaper called The Patriot published an article making the first detailed charges of AIDS as being a counter-biological warfare agent. An anonymous American anthropologist was quoted claiming that AIDS was genetically engineered at the US Army's Biological Warfare Lab at Fort Amtrak near Frederick, Maryland. Then on October the 30th, 1985, the Soviet general Antonia Kazata repeated the charges made by the Indian newspaper, making it an international controversy. All this, however, was easily passed off as a communist rhetoric by the Masonic West. However, on October the 26th, 1986, the Sunday Express became the first Western newspaper to run a front-page story confirming the finding of the Indians and Soviet newspapers, entitled AIDS Made in Lab Shop. In this article, a distinguished physician, Dr. John Seal, and Professor Jacob Siegel, the retired director of the Institute of Biology of Berlin University, both concluded that the AIDS was man-made. The outbreak of AIDS has been linked to vaccine programs around the world. The internationally respected London Times newspaper published an article as a front-page story on May the 11th, 1987, entitled "Smallpox Vaccine Triggered AIDS." The article establishes a direct correlation between the smallpox vaccines administered by the World Health Organization to an estimated 50 to 70 million people in different Central African countries and the subsequent outbreaks of AIDS in those regions. The World Health Organization is the medical wing of the United Nations. The evidence suggests that AIDS is a genetically engineered virus spread through vaccination programs in third world countries, germ warfare against the innocent and the weak, aimed at eliminating an entire populace off the face of the earth. AIDS is nothing other than the modern-day final solution, and all of this for the purpose of installing the economic policy that would give complete global domination to the Masonic West. However, for the Freemasons, economic domination on its own is not enough. In order to have Masonic government at the head of global union under complete Masonic control, an economic union may suffice, but to keep it there, they would need a military union, and that union will be none other than the United Nations. In the Muslim scripture, the holy book of Quran, Allah poses a challenge to infidels. In a verse, He addresses all of the mankind and poses a challenge. O mankind, a similitude is coined, so listen to it carefully. Verily, those on whom you call besides Allah cannot create even a fly, even though they combine together for the purpose. And if the fly snatches away a thing from them, they will have no power to release it from the fly. So weak are both, the seeker and the sought. They have not estimated Allah, His rightful estimate. Verily, Allah is all-strong, almighty. Allah chooses messengers from angels and from the men. Verily, Allah is all-hearer, all-seer. He knows what is before them and what is behind them, and to Allah return all matters for decision. O you who have believed, bow down and prostrate yourself and worship your Lord, and do good that you may be successful.
लोगों, एक मिसाल बयान की जाती है, उसे गौर से सुनो कि जिन लोगों को तुम अल्लाह के सिवा पुकारते हो वो एक मक्खी भी नहीं बना सकते, अगरचे उसके लिए सब मुज्तमा हो जाएं, और अगर उनसे मक्खी कोई चीज छीन ले जाए तो उसे उससे छुड़ा नहीं सकते। तालिब और मतलूब यानी आबिद और माबूद दोनों गए गुजरे हैं। उन लोगों ने अल्लाह की कदर जैसी करनी चाहिए थी नहीं की थी कि अल्लाह जबरदस्त और गालिब है। अल्लाह फरिश्तों में से पैगाम पहुंचाने वाले मुंतखब कर लेता है, और इंसानों में से भी बेशक अल्लाह सुनने वाला और देखने वाला है। जो उनके आगे है और जो उनके पीछे है वो उससे वाकिफ है, और सब कामों का रुजू अल्लाह ही की तरफ है। मोमिनो, रुकू करते और सजदे करते और अपने परवरदिगार की इबादत करते रहो और नेक काम करो ताकि फलाह पाओ।